Hey guys, welcome back to another episode of 247 DIY. We've got what I hope to be a pretty quick project here going on today. That's going to be installing a Chamberlain wall-mounted garage door opener on the manually open overhead door here for the shop, so stay tuned. So at this point, I've probably already released an update video on the channel. If I decide not to do that, then I'll just go ahead and explain it again real quick. You may have noticed that I've been gone for a bit. I think it's almost about 2 months now I've gone without uploading a video. That's just because I've had a really big project going on in the house. We've decided to re-side the entire thing. In addition to that, we're doing that because there was some water damage underneath. So there was a bit of repair work. It's probably been, working full time and trying to find time off. It's been about 4 months worth of work and we're finally getting close to wrapping up. We got a bit of a rainy day today, so I'm out here, I'm working, and I really want to get this garage door open because unlike the garage door up at the house that has the automatic garage door opener where I normally park, that half of the garage where I normally park is full of siding and trim and soffit and supplies and materials and everything. So I've been parking down here in the barn, but this is just to manually open the door. It's not the end of the world, but it does get a little tedious. You know, you got to come out, open the door up, hop in the car, pull it out, then hop out, close the door, lock everything up, hop back in the car. It just would be really nice to go ahead and be able to just push a button like up at the house and have the door open. Now I'm not 100% sure if this opener is going to work. This is a relatively heavy door. I didn't add up the square footage. I took a quick look at the manual before I bought this. I didn't see a weight requirement in there. They had a square footage requirement. I think it was nothing over 180 square feet, if that sounds right, off the top of my head. Either way, it doesn't really matter. I just want to go ahead and try this. Regardless of if there was a weight requirement, I think it should be fine on this door. I'm not sure. It is a little bit heavy, and the door itself's older. It's been used a lot, so it doesn't bind bad, but like when you look at it, you can see that it doesn't quite go up perfectly straight. So there is just a little bit of binding that adds a little bit of resistance. But like I said, I just want to go ahead and try it. And I think, don't quote me on this, I'm not a professional with overhead doors, but I believe manually opened overhead doors, the assist springs on the top, I believe are a bit stronger since you're opening them by hand and without an opener. So that may help assist this wall mount unit open up. But either way, there's only one way to find out. We're gonna go ahead and get it installed. Let's get this thing unboxed, see what we're dealing with. All right, I'm just gonna go ahead and start off. If the video seems a little bit dim, I do apologize. Like I said in the intro, I want this to be just kind of a quick project. Been working on the house a lot lately. I want to spend some time with the wife later. So while she's out of the house doing some things today, I'd like to just get this project wrapped up, and that means I'm not taking the extra time to move my supplementary lighting around. So this is really just going to be kind of a quick, dirty video, to the point, get it filmed, get it done. So what do we have in the box? We've got some precautionary messages right here on the top. We've got the power outage pull down cable for if the opener doesn't have power. Looks like we've got some staples for securing some wiring, some brackets, some drywall mounts, some lag bolts. Basically all your installation hardware there. And try not to drop anything here. Almost broke something right off the bat. I believe this is the automatic lock that you can put on there when the door senses it's opening, it unlocks, and that'll actually be pretty nice. I don't have one of these on the garage unit. It would be kind of nice to have one of those. We've got a Ethernet cable and a power cord. We've got a internet gateway quick start guide. Got the opener for your car. Now I already have one in my car and it does have 2 buttons on it. So I don't know, I'd like to just program it to the one that's in my car already so I don't have to get a whole new one. This one, however, looks like you might be able to hook 3 garage door openers up to it. And we've got, this looks like, obviously we're going to figure out what all this is when we get into the instructions, but I believe this is control box for the ground level, so if you have to adjust anything on the door, you can just do it. You don't have to get on a ladder. We've got a whole bunch of wiring, and we've got our safety sensors here. This, from when I was looking through the manual, looks like it's a cable sensor. So if anything should happen, if your cable comes off the drum, this unit tracks the cable as it goes up and down. And if it senses that something's screwed up with the cable, it'll disable the door and it won't be able to open it, potentially cause damage to the door if something's wrong. You have your collar here, which will attach to the main steel rod for the overhead door, and this is what the motor will turn. We've got brackets. I believe these are mounting brackets for the safety sensors, so you can mount these down. I believe that's what these are. The sensors go on there, and then they read each other across the garage door opening. We've got a whole bunch of instruction manuals. We've got the light unit for the overhead door. Because this is a wall mount, normally your unit has this built in, but it appears this comes with one that can be mounted somewhere else. I'll be honest, if this is optional to where it doesn't need to be installed for the door to function, I'm not 100% sure I'm going to install this, or at the very least, like I said, if it's not necessary, I don't believe I'm going to install this today. Maybe down the road we'll go ahead and install this, but for right now I just want the opener to function. So if I don't need to install this, we won't install this today. It's smaller than I expected, but it's pretty heavy. Then we got the opener unit itself. Now looking at it, it does look like this might be able to work from either side. All of the pictures I saw, like the product images on Chamberlain's site, and I ended up buying this one on eBay, showed it mounted to the left side of the door with the rod being on this side. That's possible. I just have that air line that I installed not too long ago for the compressed air for the shop in the way. In my head, I wanted it on the right hand side of the door. We'll get in the instructions here, we'll see if that's possible. It does appear as though this is kind of universal side to side. The only downfall being is if I do mount it on the left, I have a plug nearby this cord should reach. I don't have a plug on the other side. So we'll see. I'll read through the instructions and then end up making my mind on whether I want to move that compressed air line or not. But let's go ahead, give me a second. Let me read these instructions and we'll get back to what we got to do to get this thing mounted and working. All right, so they actually include what appears to be a pretty comprehensive instruction manual here. I do like that. And like I mentioned before, as far as the size of the door, right off the bat, they have this pre-installation checklist. I just went through. We should be good. So we'll just go right down here. Standard sectional door up to 14 feet high. It's a 10-foot high door. We should be good there. Sectional high lift door. It's not a high lift door. Doors up to 18 feet wide or doors up to 180 square feet. It's 140 square foot door, so we should be good there. Any gap between the floor and the bottom of the door must not exceed 1/4 of an inch. I don't know, that we might run into an issue there. I'm gonna go on the side of hopefully not. It is an older door, like I said, there are some gaps underneath, but I feel like most garage doors have a little bit of a gap, especially as they start to get older, which might not necessarily be even side to side. So hopefully they don't necessarily need it to be that perfect. I feel like that's asking for quite a bit of perfection to not have anything larger than 1/4 of an inch of a gap all the way across your door, but we'll cross that bridge when we get to it. Torsion bar is 1 inch in diameter. It is 1 inch in diameter. Must extend at least 1.5 inches past the bearing plate and be free of damage. We're at about 2 1/4 and it is free of damage. Distance between the ceiling and the center of the torsion bar is 3 inches or more. We got about 6 inches. Distance between the garage wall torsion bar is mounted on and the center of the torsion bar is 2.5 inches. We've got about 4 1/4 and a minimum of 8.5 inches between the side garage wall and the end of the torsion bar. We've got all the room in the world. Like I said, I just need to move that compressed air line. I do think that's what I'm going to do, just because it is going to be nice and convenient right there. I can already reach the outlet. I don't have to run a new run for another outlet. it's not compatible with reverse wound drums. Personally, I'm not really sure the orientation of reverse versus standard, but on the other side of this, when they show how to hook up the cable sensor, it is the same orientation as that picture. So I'm assuming that I don't have reverse wound drums. The drums must be 4 to 6 inches in diameter. It has 6-inch drums, and an electric outlet must be accessible within 6 feet of the installation area, which we have. So we're good to go on that. I'm gonna go ahead, and I'm sure I'm probably gonna need more tools than the recommended list. I always feel like with instructions, when they have your tools required, you end up needing more, at least to make life easier. This is sort of like the bare minimum, I feel like. But it doesn't look like anything too complicated. There's no specialized tools. You need a step ladder, a drill. You need a 5/32, a 3/16, a 5/16, and a 3/4 inch drill bit. You need a claw hammer. You need a 1/4 inch, a 5/16, and a 3/8 socket with a socket wrench and a 6-inch extension. You need a screwdriver, pliers, pencil, a 3/8 open-ended wrench, wire cutters, wire strippers, needle nose pliers, and a level. So real basic stuff there. Then it lists all of your included hardware in your inventory, and then we're going to move right on to the installation here. We've got our collar right here. You can see you got your 4 screws on there. We're going to be loosening these up. They already appear to be loose, so I'm not going to worry about that right now. We're going to put the collar on the motor shaft. We're going to slide it all the way on until it stops, and then also note there's a wide portion and a narrow portion. The narrow portion obviously is going to go on. I mean, it can only fit one way, but I went to go put this on at first and thought maybe they had sent me something wrong here, but the wider part obviously goes onto your motor shaft. So once we have that position on there, we're going to go ahead and tighten down the 2 inner bolts. It says use a 3/8 inch wrench. I couldn't find a 3/8 inch wrench, and 3/8 inch socket's too small. 7/16 here is what you're going to want. Just going to tighten those down, and then it says a 1/2 to 1/4 of an inch turn more. We're going to go in our package of hardware here. We want our mounting bracket, and you want the 2 of these number 10 by 32 screws. We're going to go ahead, and you can see there's 2 holes right here. We're going to align the slots here. This is going to be able to give you your distance off the wall. And we're going to loosely install this mounting bracket. Sorry, it's actually these 2 black screws here. And just note the holes that they're going into are non-threaded holes. So you're not actually going to be able to line up the threads. So it's going to cut the threads as you install these. And these are 9/16 heads on here. Again, we're just loosely installing these, but I want these threads to at least be cut in there before we get this on the wall and we're wrestling with this. I do feel like they could have included maybe a little bit more of a stouter mounting bracket here. I realize most of the weight is going to be supported by the actual torsion bar of the garage door, but I don't know. If I were designing this, I would have put a little bit of a stronger bracket on here, but it is what it is. All right, so here we are. We've got the unit. We'll go ahead and slide it right on the shaft. Now I've already had it up here, and it turns out I'm going to luck out. I mentioned how I was going to have to move this compressed air line. I have just enough room behind the unit with how much standoff I have for this door. I have just enough room where that compressed air line can live behind there, and our bracket down here will be able to live right here. I do have it slid out a little bit on the shaft. I think it would be a little bit nicer if I could move the unit all the way on the shaft. Again, not touching the bearing plate. They did say to make sure it doesn't touch the bearing plate, but you can see I have this steel bracket that everything mounts to. And this mounting bracket's gonna live nicely if it's not lipped over top of this bracket. So that's about where I have to mount this. Let me throw the level up on the side, and then we will mark our mounting holes. And I do apologize that not everything can be in frame here. However, if I were to move the camera back, my head's gonna be in the way, and all you're gonna see is me filming the back of my head. So I do have the level here on the side of the unit. Do need to come out a little bit. And actually, pushing that bracket into position keeps us nice and level. I'm pretty happy with that right there. It's gonna change a little bit as everything tightens up, but as long as we're in the ballpark here, I think we're gonna be good. So we'll mark these holes. So first things first, knowing that we have this in the position on the torsion bar now where we want it, we're gonna go ahead and tighten down the 2 bolts, the set screws here. Again, per the recommended 1/4 to 1/2 inch pass tight. And if you're doing this yourself, you may want to orient this collar here with the bolts facing forward. I am finding a little bit of a clearance issue here, with the ceiling being in the way, but we can still get to it. And then we're gonna go ahead and fully secure this bracket into place. I realize the lighting here is not very good, but it's pretty self-explanatory. And they did want you to drill pilot holes. I'm not gonna do that. These are self-tapping lag screws they included. Should be able to just send those home if you've got an impact drill without having to bother with pilot holes. Just like that. And if you wanted to, at this point, you can go ahead and just verify that you're still level on the wall. I'm happy where that's sitting. I'm confident that that's still going to be level. Then we'll go ahead and just tighten up these 1/4 inch screws to the side of the unit. And I do like how they made this so that you don't have to worry about getting precise and spacing this off the wall. This can kind of tilt. It doesn't have to be perfectly, like they said, flush with the wall surface. It does make installation quite easily. And I'm really digging the fact that we didn't have to alter this compressed air line at all. It's just gonna live right over the top of it like that. So now that's installed, we can move on to the next step. And I'm just gonna go ahead and throw my level back up here. I know you can't see it. Well, actually I can put it on this side so it's in frame. Well, it doesn't really fit. You probably can't see the bubble, but we are dead square, so I'm happy with that. All right, so go ahead and undo this zip tie on the power cord here just to get it out of the way. And this is your emergency release right here. I don't know if that was good or bad that I just pulled that, but well, actually no, it was just tucked up in there. It actually has to come up here on the side of the unit. Looks like you actually have to pull quite a bit to get that to release. So all we're gonna do is loop this through here. Just gonna kind of eyeball it down to the floor where it looks like it's in a good location to be able to reach, but also out of the way. And we're just going to tie an overhand knot on there like so. Throw an extra one, because why not? And we'll go ahead and cut that excess off of there. Just like that. So that kind of sucks. They want you to use the door lock template to line everything up and get this installed, but I've searched through every piece of packaging here, every manual, every piece of paper they've given me, and there's no template, which would have been super easy to use a template. So we're just gonna have to kind of figure this out on our own. I have an idea. Let's go ahead and get this going. So what I'm gonna do, this is your door lock here. I've just placed a piece of tape over the top. I'll be able to mark the 2 threaded holes for the mounting bolts and then be able to mark the actual locking pin that comes out. And then we'll tape this in the location that we want in the door, and essentially we've made our own template. just like that. Alrighty, so they recommend the second roller from the bottom. This is our second roller from the bottom. The side with the arrow and the words on this and the wire facing up is your up side. And we know basically we're going to be installing this right about here. We just need to make sure that we don't interfere with this bracket that comes out from the wall. So knowing that, we'll just go ahead and line this up so that it's as close to that bracket as I can get it. That way there's not a ton of travel between the locking pin and the roller should someone try to force this door open. Just gonna try to eyeball that, make sure we're still good, and we are. All right, and I'm assuming that the template that should have been provided tells you what size drill bits you need. I'm just going to go ahead and use this step drill bit and then just eyeball everything. Like that. I may come back in the future with a little bit of Loctite maybe for these. I feel like these may want to loosen up over time with vibrations, but maybe not. So you can see there we have both of the screws, top and bottom, and the pin sticking through. And that will automatically lock and unlock. And then we're going to go ahead and plug the wire that comes off of the electronic lock, and we're going to plug it into the front of the unit here. Try to show you this with one hand because I don't have a good mount to get up close and show you. But the plug's in there, but they do provide this little gap behind there, right down here where my thumb is. And then that way this little access panel, you're not running it through the access panel. So you can just run it through there. And then this plug, this little white plug here, that's the one that this plugs into. Just like that. And then the door does come with insulated staples, and that's what they tell you to do. I'm going to do cable management once this is all installed. Probably run a lot of this stuff together. We still have to install a couple of things, so I'm not going to waste the staples just yet. We'll do the cable management when we're all said and done. All right, so here we are. We've got our opener right over here. We're back up here at the drum, and you can see we've got our cable coming down here. Now they said about approximately 1/4 of an inch from the mounting surface to the cable. We've got about 1 inch, so I think this should be fine. I thought this was going to be a bit more precise. I was honestly a little bit, not nervous, but I thought this was going to be kind of complicated to set up. But it's a pretty simple device. It's spring-loaded, and basically this just needs to mount to the wall, and it needs to be spaced off the wall enough where this will rest on the cable, and then the cable will spin this little roller here as it goes up and down. So I'm going to mount it just about like that. Close to that plate, but not so close that it's going to be touching. I think that should be perfect. It's going to be kind of hard to do, to be honest with you. This is where drilling some pilot holes would probably help you out. But again, like I said in the beginning, kind of just doing a quick and dirty install here. So just like when we mounted the mounting bracket for the opener, we're just going to drive these home. There's one. There's two. And now that's being held off of from being fully closed by the cable. And all you want to do is, there's a little
Like if you look in there before you install it, I've already installed it. Well, actually you can probably see it. There's just a little switch here. And so if this were to fully close all the way, I'm assuming it's going to contact that switch and tell the opener not to open. But we are well away from that switch, not even close to closing it right now. So I think that should be fine. We'll go ahead, we'll unravel our wire. Again, I'm not going to do the cable management on this one right away. I will have to before we test it and move it, because the way this needs to route, it very could easily get caught up in the drum or the drive shaft for the motor here. But again, just for right this second, just gonna get things mounted up. And just like before, we brought the wires up through. This time, instead of having a connector, they simply plug right in to the green plug right here. And these are push to connect connectors. So you just take the two ends of the wire, stick them in there, and they grab right on. If you needed to get them out for some reason, you would just take like a flathead screwdriver and push those little brown tabs, and that would release it. But we've got those tucked up in there. They're secure. Pull that wire down through like so, and that's all set. Like I said, before we go ahead and try this first time, I will secure this wire up out of the way just so it doesn't get caught in anything. All right, next up, step 7, we're going to be installing the door control module, which is this guy right here. All right, and so I'm gonna go ahead and mount the opener unit over here by the entry door where the light switches are. It would have been nice to mount it on the other side. It just didn't make sense to. I'm just gonna have to run wire up and over. I'll run the wire off camera, but I will show you where it plugs in, and we'll show you how to wire this up. I did go ahead and wire this up already. You can see it's pretty self-explanatory. This screw here says red, this screw here says white. White wire goes there, obviously. The white wire with the red stripe goes here, obviously, and it's just like wiring any, household outlet or anything like that up. You just strip some of the insulation off, bend it a little bit, loop it behind the screw, and then tighten the screw down. And then there's a little notch up here in the top where the wire is going to come out. So I'm just going to kind of look and see where I like that. I guess right about there, just picking an arbitrary spot. So I know for the little hole in the bottom, that's going to be right about there. So I'll take our first screw, mount it there, and then that one's going to go into the little keyway there on the bottom. And then the top one, if you lift that little panel up, goes right through the top once this is in place. And it's a little crooked, but I could fix that later on. But right now I don't care. Like I said, just trying to get this thrown up real quick. So I'm going to take this wire, I'm going to run it up and over off camera, and then I'll show you where it connects into on the opener itself. All right, and over here on the opener side of things, just like on the other side, all we did was take the two wires, strip a little bit off the end, and push them in the connector. Unlike this green connector where I could just push those in, and it was like a push connect, you do have to depress the brown little tabs on this side for the wires to actually go all the way into where they'll grab. But it is color coded. The red wire goes into the red terminal and the white wire into the white terminal. All right, so skipped one step, and that was for the light. I'm not going to be installing that today. I just don't have an overhead outlet handy. I'll wire one in later. This does appear to be wireless, like it sends a wireless signal to this light, so that will be installed later on, just not right now. And then another thing, and again, I just want to point out, this is not going to be permanent. I understand that these sensors are a safety feature. I will install them down the road, but the next step in the book here is to get the sensors hooked up. Now these would get mounted on your track that the wheels for the door mounts on, but these are much thinner than the track for this door. This is a bit of a heavier duty door, and these are much too narrow to mount, and the tracks for this door are just too far off the wall for these to work anyway, so I would have to put spacers, and I just don't want to mess with that right now. Like I said, I am rushing this a little bit. Just want to get things hooked up, verify everything's going to work. So again, this isn't going to be permanent. I understand this is a safety feature. Make sure that you install them properly. This is just to make sure that the door is going to work, and then later on down the road I'll go ahead and set these up properly. But for now, I've just mounted them to a wooden block so that the sensors are looking at each other and effectively bypassing the system the way it was intended to work. I'll just screw this to the wall up out of the way near the unit itself, and this will allow me to at least make sure the door is going to function. And like I said, later on down the road when I have a little bit more time, we'll go ahead and we'll mount these up properly for the safety sensors for the door. And I'll tell you, this wiring mess is already starting to bug me, so it's going to be nice once everything's hooked up and verified to be working to get this cleaned up. But we've got that mounted up out of the way on the wall. I mean, you really could have mounted it anywhere. I just mounted it there. And same thing as before, each wire, or each one of the little laser units there has a white wire and a black wire. Both white wires go to the white terminal and both black wires go to the black terminal. And now we can go ahead and plug the unit in. And I almost forgot, this outlet here is actually on a switch for this old, I believe they call these squirrel cages or squirrel boxes or something like this. It came with the barn and I just wired it back in, but I never use it, so I don't know. But we'll go ahead and turn that on. And that actually is good. One sensor should be green and one sensor should be amber, so that should be good. All right, guys, so the next steps, I actually wasn't going to explain because I thought it was going to be pretty self-explanatory, but because I got tripped up and things were pretty confusing, I'll just go ahead and walk you through it. Now, if you're using the quick start guide, it jumps right to hooking up your internet gateway, but you can't do that, at least from what I found when I was trying to get things going. You can't do that until the limits are adjusted on the door. So if you want to go ahead and do that, you need to come over to your unit and you're going to need the included opener. I won't walk through because I've already programmed this, but you're going to come up to your opener and you're going to locate these two buttons. You're going to push and hold the black button until the amber light starts to flash quickly. Once it's flashing quickly, release the button. Then with the light flashing, you're going to push and hold the black button and hold it until the door comes all the way up to the desired maximum height that you want, then let go. And this is the part that gets tricky because you have to do it very quickly. It does say in the instructions to do it quickly. It just, to me, it seems like you have to do it absurdly quickly. You're going to push the big button on your opener here. It's going to start to close the door and then extremely quickly go ahead and press that black button again. Then once you press the black button, you're going to go ahead and push the yellow button, push and hold it, and then that will lower your door all the way to the ground. And when it is at the ground where you want it, you'll release the yellow button. And then you're going to push the big button on your door opener again. Your door will open up and your open and close limits will be set. Now at that point, your door is going to be in the open position and you're going to set your force limits. So you're going to come up here, you're going to push the yellow button 2 times. Once you push the yellow button 2 times, that amber light will start to flash quickly. And then all you're going to do, push the big button on your remote and the door will lower all the way down. And at this point, your automatic lock will start functioning. So it'll go down and then your lock will close. Push it again, your lock will open, door will open all the way up. Push it again, door will go down and close, and the lock will shut, and your force limits will be shut. You can't do anything with your keypad except force open the door. That's what I found out. The only thing you can do with your keypad until that's programmed in is just force it up and down. But once those limits are set, then you can work on the other things. So I already have my router up here. Obviously I'm going to find a better spot for this, but it's got the power cord. Power cord's plugged in down here. We're plugged into our router. You just wait until the light turns green. You can see top there, steady green light. And then you can go into your phone. I already have the MyQ app downloaded because we have a Chamberlain opener on our regular garage attached to the house. So all I did was add device. Don't go to opener, go to accessory, I think it is, and you're going to look for internet gateway. And then you're going to enter in your serial number, which is on the back of the internet gateway here. And then once that is entered in, then it tells you, and it does kind of walk you through. It was just confusing the instructions. You can't, it wants you to, if you're doing the quick setup, it wants you to set that up first, but you can't set that up until the limits are set up because you can't use your keypad until the limits are set up. So anyway, once you enter that serial number, then you're going to come over here. For this style wall mount, you're going to push this learn button here. It's this one right on top. You're going to push it 2 times, and then you kind of sit there for a minute, and then it recognizes it, and then you add everything in like you normally would for your door. So I'm pretty stoked. We have a functioning door here now. I heard the lock open over there, and door goes up. And down. There we go. And there you go. You just heard the lock engage again. And that's that. Everything's all good to go. Like I said, I'm going to do this off camera. I'm not going to bore you guys with this, but obviously we're going to clean all these wires up nice and tidy. And then when I get some time, I'm going to reroute those safety sensors so that they are actually functional. Funny enough, when we bought our house, the garage door, that's how it was installed when we bought the house. I've seen that trick before. I just kind of thought it was funny that like even our home inspector didn't point that out or anything. They're just mounted above the opener unit overhead in the garage. So that's kind of where I learned that trick from, but it works if you don't want them set up or if you just temporarily are trying to get things hooked up and you want to know things work, because the door won't open if those are not aligned properly. So, all right, so it's actually been about a month since I filmed that last bit. I was going to end the video there. However, in the meantime, I did go ahead and get some things done, and one of which was to go ahead and get this light hooked up here in the ceiling. So let me get that unplugged, turn that light off, and I'll show you how we got it mounted up and how it works. All right, so if you remember in the last video, I said that one of the big reasons why I didn't mount this is I didn't have an accessible outlet up here on the ceiling of the shop. So I did go ahead and install this. Unfortunately, all the electrical up here, with the exception of this 220 volt run for my lift, is all switched power. So basically I just had to run a constant hot wire over there where it normally splits off and goes down to the wall switches, and just ran a dedicated constant wire over here to add this outlet here in the ceiling. And we went ahead and mounted this up. Really couldn't be easier. You can see up in there in those pockets, you've got your mounting locations. You just mark everything out, get the screws in there relatively loose. You can see the wider portion of the opening there. You just slot them in and then rotate it. So you just have to factor that in. Like in this case, right when after it's rotated, I want it lined up between these ribs, and then tighten the screws down. And then really, super simple. I didn't even read the instructions on this. There's just a button. You can see that black button up there. Once it was plugged in, I just hit that black button, and I believe that paired it to the opener. And so now it works. Go ahead and plug it back in there. Hit the button. And come over here, hit our opener. And our light comes on, which is really nice because before I had this hooked up with the light and everything, coming out in the morning, I leave early in the morning for work when it's still dark. And so I would pull up my phone in the house, pull up the app on my phone, open the door so it was open walking out here, but then everything's dark in the barn and it's just pitch black in here, and it's not the end of the world to turn the actual garage lights on, but then it kind of defeats the whole point of convenience of installing this thing and not having to hop out of the vehicle, because then you got to get in, start the vehicle, turn your lights off, then get back in the vehicle and everything like that. So this is just really nice. And then the other cool feature too is there's a little sensor in here, and there's a switch. You can either have it on or off. But I like the sensor because it's just a motion sensor. So if I'm out here or if I'm coming out when it's really dark, I don't have to like hunt around for the switches in the dark. All I gotta do is come in the doorway, the sensor picks me up, and it automatically turns that light on, which is really nice. And then the only other thing I did while I was out here doing electrical, if you remember, I just mentioned it briefly. We grabbed this plug right here for the opener because it was nice and convenient right here. But this was a switch plug for this ventilation fan here. So I just wired it up as a half hot. So I've got the ventilation fan here hooked up to the switched side, so I can use that as needed, while the constant side stays constant power for the opener hooked up. See, I still haven't really gotten around to getting those installed. I am still going to install the safety sensors. Just really haven't had time to mess around with those. Like I said, these tracks on this door, they're quite a bit beefier than like just my standard garage door up on the house. And I'm just gonna have to get creative with like some wood blocking as spacers to come out to the outside of these rails, and I just haven't really felt like doing that right now. But I am gonna get those hooked up. But overall, I really like it. I couldn't be happier. Like I said, the convenience is just really nice.
So that's gonna go ahead and wrap this one up, guys. I do realize the product itself comes with instructions. It's what I personally followed the entire time getting this installed. But I just want to go ahead and throw this together for you in case you're considering installing it together and you weren't exactly sure how difficult the process might be. So as always, guys, I really hope you enjoyed the video. If you did, feel free to leave a comment below. Be sure to hit that like button, and if you're not subscribed to the channel yet, consider subscribing. Thanks.